You ever find yourself in the middle of a storm so fierce that it feels like the world itself is trying to push you back? That's exactly how it was that evening in Wyoming. Snow was falling in thick, heavy flakes, the kind that sticks instantly, covering the prairie in a white blanket, and the wind cut through every layer of clothing as if it wanted to remind anyone out there who was really in charge. On a small ranch tucked between rolling hills, a mare named Bella was beginning to give birth. She was nervous, trembling slightly, nostrils flaring as the icy air hit her face. Normally, the ranch hands would be there to assist, but this time it was just her and Max, the St. Bernard. Max wasn't a trained guard dog, nor had he ever been on any kind of formal rescue mission. He was a gentle giant, massive in size, with a coat thick enough to survive the harshest winter storms. But Max had a protective streak a mile wide, especially when it came to the animals on the ranch. From the first moment Bella had stepped onto the snowy pasture, Max had taken an interest in her. He followed her around, sniffing, nudging her with his nose, and lying close when she seemed restless. That day, as she pawed nervously at the frozen ground, Max sensed the tension immediately. Something in the air told him that tonight would be different. And he was right. As the wind howled across the plains, rustling the wooden fence posts and sending snow swirling into many whirlwinds, Max's ears perked up. He caught movement on the edges of the property, shadows slipping through the snow. First, a bobcat, sleek and cautious, prowling close to the fence line. Then, from farther off, the unmistakable silhouettes of coyotes, hunched low, moving with a purpose that made Max's hackles rise. The animals were drawn to the mare, instinctively sensing vulnerability. But Max had no intention of letting anyone, or anything, near Bella. He stood tall, massive paws pressing into the snow, breath fogging in the icy air, eyes locked on the intruders. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The storm's howl mixed with the distant crunching of paws and snow. Bella whinnied softly, anxious, and Max let out a deep, resonant bark, the kind that could rattle a coyote's courage. It was the first warning, a clear statement, stay back. But the bobcat, undeterred, slinked closer, tail low, eyes bright, muscles coiled. Max lunged, placing himself directly between the predator and Bella. The bobcat hissed, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the wind. Max growled low, a vibration felt more than heard. He didn't bite yet. He didn't need to, but his sheer presence, his bulk, and the intensity in his eyes were enough to make the bobcat hesitate. Then the coyotes arrived, cautiously, circling from a distance, testing the situation. Max's stance didn't waver. He adjusted, moving slightly to keep both the mare and the approaching predators in view. Every hair on his back was raised, every muscle tense. He was ready. This was no ordinary moment of play or instinct. This was strategy. He had assessed the threat, calculated angles, and was prepared to defend. The bobcat made a sudden dash, claws scraping against icy rocks. Max met it with a thunderous bark and a forceful push, body slamming into the snow to create space. The coyote at the rear yipped, startled, unsure of how to proceed. Max's massive frame shifted again, blocking access to Bella completely. She pawed the snow, her body tense, ears flat. Max circled her protectively, nudging her gently with his nose as if to reassure her, stay calm. I've got this. Hours earlier, Bella had been restless but not in danger. Now, in the middle of a snowstorm with predators closing in, the stakes were higher than anyone could have predicted. Max's breathing was steady, his eyes scanning, tail alert. He was a sentinel, unwavering. The first labor pains intensified, Bella's body trembling with effort. Max stayed closer than ever, letting her lean against him, feeling the mare's tension radiate through his massive body. He wasn't just guarding her from predators. He was grounding her, giving her the confidence to continue, to push through the pain of giving birth in one of the harshest conditions imaginable. And then it happened. The first of the pups emerged. A tiny, fragile bundle of life, squirming in the snow-dusted straw. Max's eyes softened briefly, acknowledging the life he had protected, but he did not relax. The bobcat had not left. The coyotes were still watching. His attention snapped back to the perimeter. One wrong move, 1 second of distraction, and the newborn could be in danger. The bobcat hissed again, closer this time. Max growled, low and warning. It wasn't just a sound, it was a command. The coyote inched forward, tail stiff, ears flat. Max adjusted his stance, making himself appear even larger, massive paws pressing into the snow, coat puffed up to create the illusion of even greater size. The storm howled around them, snow blinding, wind cutting through every layer, and yet Max's focus never wavered. Bella continued laboring, sweat and exertion visible even in the frigid air, and every so often she looked to Max, nostrils flaring, eyes trusting. And he responded, nudging her with his nose, circling protectively, barking at the slightest sound or movement outside the immediate circle. Time passed in this frozen, tense ballet. The bobcat and coyotes tested him, probing edges, but Max anticipated every step, calculated every move. He lunged, pushed, barked, and the predators retreated, unwilling to face the massive dog defending life with every fiber of his being. The first pup's weak cry cut through the wind, and Max shifted position to let Bella care for it. But still, he maintained vigilance, scanning the white expanse, ready to repel any sudden attack. Snowflakes melted on his thick fur, whipped by the wind, and his breath came out in heavy fogs, but he didn't rest. He was a wall of protection, a guardian born for this precise moment. The storm raged on, coyotes creeping closer, the bobcat lurking at the tree line, but Max held his ground, an immovable force between predator and prey, between danger and life. And then another pup was born. Max adjusted slightly, keeping both newborns in view, letting Bella lick and nuzzle them, while he remained a shield. The coyotes, now realizing that their attempts were futile, retreated into the distant tree line. The bobcat, once arrogant, slinked back into the shadows, acknowledging that this guardian was not to be trifled with. Finally, the storm seemed to calm slightly. Max, still alert, settled a few feet away from the mother and her pups, eyes scanning, ears twitching. Bella, exhausted but safe, nuzzled him, a gesture of gratitude if ever there was one. And in that moment, the snow, the wind, the cold, all of it, was secondary to the fact that life had been protected. Max had done what he was born to do. He had fought off predators, braved a snowstorm, and ensured that the mare could give birth safely. For the ranch family who arrived minutes later, witnessing the aftermath, the sight was astonishing. A massive St. Bernard, fur-caked with snow, panting but proud, standing sentinel over a mare and her newborn foals. The family didn't need words. They saw the courage, the loyalty, the unwavering presence, and knew that a hero had existed in their midst. The snow continued to fall relentlessly, the wind whipping across the plains with a force that made every step forward feel like a battle. Max, the massive St. Bernard, planted his paws firmly in the snow, his coat dusted white, eyes locked on the bobcat that had circled too close. The creature crouched low, muscles coiled, tail flicking with anticipation. Behind it, the howls of coyotes drifted faintly through the storm, the pack testing the limits of their courage as they watched the scene unfold. Max's stance was immovable, a wall of fur and muscle, radiating authority and warning with every low growl that vibrated through the snowy air. Bella, exhausted from the effort of giving birth, huddled near her newborn foal, trembling. Her breaths came in sharp pants, and she shot nervous glances at the approaching predators. Max's presence was the only thing keeping her calm. The bobcat lunged suddenly, claws extended, eyes bright and wild. Max reacted instantly. He shifted, his bulk intercepting the small predator, letting out a thunderous bark that rolled across the plains like distant thunder. The bobcat skidded back, surprise and fear etched into its sleek face, but it was not deterred. It darted to the side, trying to flank Max, to approach Bella from a different angle. Max adjusted again, circling the mare protectively, forcing the bobcat back with precise, strategic movements. Each motion was calculated, instinctive. The coyotes, emboldened by the bobcat's movements, began to creep closer, their low growls carried through the wind. Max turned his attention briefly, growling, baring his teeth, and raised his massive frame even higher. His posture alone, combined with the guttural warning, was enough to halt the coyotes in their tracks. But he knew the storm, the snow, and the predators were relentless. He could not falter. Suddenly, the bobcat made another attempt, leaping toward the mare. Max reacted with lightning speed, pivoting, intercepting the attack mid-leap. The bobcat yowled, claws scraping the icy ground, and Max pushed it away with a heavy paw, using his weight to force it off balance. The coyotes hesitated, sensing the danger of engaging such a formidable opponent. Max let out another series of deep barks, each one commanding and filled with warning. The wind howled, snow whipped across the plains, and yet he remained entirely focused on the task: protect Bella and her foal at all costs. Bella shifted slightly, nuzzling the tiny foal, while Max stayed close, circling slowly to maintain a protective barrier between her and the predators. The bobcat, realizing brute force alone would not overcome the St. Bernard, tried a new tactic, slinking closer from a blind spot. Max sensed it immediately. He pivoted, positioning himself so that the bobcat could not approach without being confronted. With one swift movement, Max lunged slightly, his powerful body blocking the predator, teeth snapping in warning. The bobcat retreated a few feet, yowling, before disappearing into the snow and shadow. The coyotes, realizing the fight would be dangerous, began to back off, their growls fading into the distance. For a brief moment, the storm seemed to settle slightly, as if acknowledging Max's victory. But he did not relax. His ears twitched constantly, eyes scanning the edges of the pasture, body tense and ready to intercept any sudden movement. He stayed in position, lying partially between Bella and the snow-covered fence line, alert, breathing steady despite the wind cutting through his thick coat. Minutes passed. Bella continued laboring with her second foal, tiny legs sliding awkwardly across the icy ground. Max nudged her gently with his nose, a reassuring gesture, encouraging her to remain calm and focused. The foal emerged, healthy but weak, and Max circled carefully, allowing Bella to attend to her newborn while maintaining a vigilant perimeter. The wind continued to howl, snow falling thickly, visibility low. Every shadow, every rustle of wind through the nearby trees, set Max's instincts on high alert. He growled low, deep in his chest, a warning that could be felt more than heard. The storm raged, and he did not flinch. The coyotes lingered at the tree line, curious, hungry, testing whether the battle was truly over. Max stood his ground, massive paws firm, eyes locked on any movement. He barked once, sharply, and the pack retreated temporarily. Max paced slowly, circling Bella and the newborns, ready to intercept any threat immediately. Hours seemed to pass in this frozen tableau. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the plains and creating a surreal, almost magical backdrop. Despite the cold and exhaustion, Max maintained his vigilance. Bella nuzzled the foals, breathing steadily, and glanced at Max with what could only be described as gratitude and trust. Max responded with a gentle nuzzle, positioning his body to shield the family unit. The bobcat attempted another stealthy approach, testing the perimeter once again. Max reacted instantly, lunging and barking, cutting off any path the predator might take. He did not strike aggressively, but used his sheer size and presence to dominate the situation. The coyotes, sensing that any engagement would be dangerous, backed off completely, melting into the snowy shadows. For the first time since the storm began, there was a brief sense of relief. The immediate threat had passed. Max lowered himself slightly, lying partially in the snow, but his eyes never left the mare and her foals. Every muscle still tense, ready to spring into action. The ranch hands arrived shortly afterward, alerted by the commotion and the distant howls of coyotes. They trudged through the deep snow, slipping occasionally, to find Max standing sentinel, snow clinging to his fur, guarding Bella and her newborns. They were astonished. One rancher whispered, "I've never seen anything like this. That dog, he saved them." Max simply wagged his tail lightly, nudged Bella again, and stayed close, alert to the edges of the pasture, as if saying, "They are safe for now." Over the next few hours, the ranchers checked the perimeter, ensuring the predators had left. Max remained vigilant, circling slowly, nuzzling the foals gently, watching every movement in the snow. The mare, exhausted but unharmed, gradually calmed, recognizing the protective presence of the dog. The foals rested, huddled close to their mother, with Max lying beside them like a guardian, massive head on his paws, eyes still scanning. The snowstorm continued to swirl, but the danger had passed. Max had demonstrated not only courage but extraordinary intelligence and instinct. He had assessed multiple threats simultaneously, taken strategic positions, and acted decisively to protect those under his care. By the time the ranch hands had finished securing the area, Max remained the picture of loyalty and vigilance, refusing to leave the side of Bella and her foals. Every person who witnessed the scene was struck by the raw heroism of this Saint Bernard. It was not just about size or strength. It was about instinct, awareness, and unwavering commitment. Max had battled a bobcat and multiple coyotes, endured freezing winds, and ensured the survival of both mare and newborns. Even as the storm began to subside slightly, the image of Max standing tall, massive coat dusted with snow, eyes alert, head raised against the howling wind, remained etched in the minds of everyone present. They understood immediately that this dog had saved lives, not once, but repeatedly, through intelligence, courage, and loyalty that transcended any normal expectation of an animal. By the time the storm began to ease, the ranch felt almost serene, though the ground was still coated in deep snow and ice, and the wind continued to whip through the fences with a low, haunting whistle. Bella, the mare, stood tall but weary, her coat damp with melted snow and sweat, nuzzling her two newborn foals as they huddled close, shivering but safe. Max, the Saint Bernard, remained by their side, a massive silhouette against the white expanse, eyes scanning the tree lines and distant hills for any lingering threats. The predators, the bobcat and the coyotes, had retreated, likely realizing that this guardian was not to be trifled with. But Max didn't relax completely. Even with the immediate danger gone, he stayed alert, lying close to Bella, tail occasionally flicking, ears swiveling, breathing steady but controlled. The ranch hands who arrived minutes later were stunned. They trudged through the snow, slipping occasionally, marveling at the scene. A Saint Bernard standing sentinel over a mare and her newborns, frost dusting his thick fur, eyes sharp and vigilant. One of them whispered, almost reverently, "I've never seen anything like this. That dog, he saved them all." And indeed, he had. Max's actions had ensured the survival of lives that otherwise would have been at severe risk. He had judged the movements of predators, calculated risks instinctively, and taken decisive action to protect the most vulnerable. Bella, sensing the calm but unwavering presence of Max, relaxed slightly, nuzzling her pups and occasionally pressing her forehead against his broad chest as if to say thank you. For the ranch family, this was more than just heroism. It was a lesson in vigilance, courage, and the deep intelligence and loyalty that animals are capable of when instinct meets love. Over the next several hours, the family ensured the foals were comfortable and that the pasture was secure. Max remained close, circling occasionally to inspect the surroundings, always returning to Bella and her newborns. His actions were instinctive yet thoughtful, a perfect balance of strength and care. The barn was prepped with warm straw, water was brought to the mare, and finally, after ensuring all was safe, Max lay down beside them, head resting on his paws, still alert but allowing a few moments of rest. The story of that night spread quickly through the local ranching community. Neighbors who had witnessed the events recounted them in hushed, awe-filled tones. A massive Saint Bernard, alone against a bobcat and a pack of coyotes, in the middle of a blizzard, defending a mare giving birth. It was extraordinary, yet completely real. Articles and social media posts followed, sharing images of Max standing tall in the snow, fur-coated with frost, eyes bright and determined. People marveled at his intelligence, his courage, his sheer will to protect the vulnerable. For the ranchers, the lesson was immediate and profound. Heroism does not require conscious calculation, nor does it demand recognition. Sometimes, it is instinct, loyalty, and devotion manifesting in the most critical moments. And for Max, it was nothing more than what he had always been: a guardian, a protector, a loyal companion capable of extraordinary bravery when it mattered most. In the days following the storm, Bella and her foals thrived, with Max never far from their side. He guided them through the snow-covered pasture, gently nudging the foals to follow their mother, barking softly if they strayed too far. Every so often, he would glance toward the distant tree line, ears twitching, always ensuring no threat remained. The ranch family often watched this behavior in awe, reflecting on how the instincts of one animal had saved the lives of 3 others and ensured the continuation of life on their land. And for those watching from a distance or hearing the story later, there was a profound reminder. Loyalty, courage, and vigilance can take many forms. Max had no concept of fame or recognition. He had acted purely out of instinct and devotion, yet his actions became legendary within the community. The narrative spread not just because of the danger he faced, but because it reminded people of the extraordinary bonds that can exist between humans, animals, and the natural world. It prompted discussions about responsibility, protection, and the depth of loyalty animals can show. By nightfall, the storm had passed completely. The stars peeked out between clearing clouds, reflecting off the pristine snow. Max lay with his head resting gently against Bella, occasionally nudging a foal with his nose. There was a calm satisfaction in his posture, an unspoken acknowledgement that the work had been done. The barn glowed softly in the distance, warm lights spilling out, and for the first time since the storm began, the ranchers could breathe easy. They had witnessed a quiet, natural heroism that was almost too profound to put into words. And they shared it, retelling the story to anyone who would listen, not just to marvel at the courage of a dog, but to remind people of what true protection, loyalty, and bravery look like. For viewers watching this story on YouTube, the lesson is clear and powerful. Heroism doesn't always roar. Sometimes it moves on 4 legs, silent yet unwavering, facing the harshest storms and the sharpest teeth to ensure life continues. Loyalty is more than companionship. It is presence, courage, and action when it is needed most. And Max, the St. Bernard of Wyoming, embodies all of it. In the snow-filled pastures, with Bella and her foals safe and warm, one can see the purest form of bravery and devotion. It is a reminder to all of us. Courage can come in unexpected forms. Love and loyalty manifest in ways we may not always recognize. And sometimes, it takes the shape of a giant, gentle dog standing tall against the wild to teach us what it truly means to protect those we care about. As the ranch family reflects on that night, they often pause and watch Max lying near the mare and foals, a silent guardian. They tell anyone who will listen, this dog didn't just protect animals. He reminded us what it means to be brave, loyal, and selfless. And for the rest of us, it is a story worth remembering, sharing, and reflecting on. Because when courage and devotion meet instinct and opportunity, the results can save lives, create legends, and inspire everyone who witnesses them. Max didn't ask for praise. He didn't need it. He only needed to protect. And that is the essence of heroism.